Hello, and we are live. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm excited to have my co-host, Mr. Monte Silva, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. He said he has something very special in store, but before we get started, hello again. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show, and I'm joined by my co-host for our special episode of the Disruptive Chef Club, Mr. Monte Silva. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Christian?
Good, good, good. I'm really excited. First of all, I can't believe it's Monday already. And I also heard that you have a very special guest with you today. Do you want to talk about your special guest you have with you today?
Well, my mom is actually in the studio watching right now, which is really cool. She's visiting from Washington State. And, when I was working in restaurants, occasionally she would come in where I was working if she was in town. But, you're always running around crazy with your head cut off. And this way she just kind of gets to hang in the studio with me.
And also for the listeners, I got to meet her earlier, and she says that I have a much nicer accent than her son. So I appreciate it, Mom. We love you. Thanks for giving us a shout out. So thank you. So one of the things we hearing a lot about Monte, and a lot of people reaching out to us is around what is work in the hospitality industry looking like over the next few years? Not just what is it looking like, what is some of the impact around where the hospitality work is going? So I thought maybe today we talk a little bit about the new work dynamics in the hospitality industry, what's going on with AI, what's going on with some of the robotics, and then also what is the landscape of today's hospitality industry. And maybe we can even touch a little bit upon remote work. The reason I want to bring this up with remote work, there is a company which has a fast food restaurant. And I don't know if the listeners seen this yet. They have a virtual cashier. And the cashier sits at home, wherever she's based out of. There's a few cameras at the customer, and she's checking them out virtually. And she's based not in the restaurant wherever she is. So she's based remotely. What do you think of that?
I think that's an interesting concept, especially in the QSR segment. I think still in the full service space, people like that human connection. But I think it's kind of a cool. I don't want to call it a gimmick, but it's kind of a cool thing to get people to come in and check it out and see a virtual person there. Doing the transaction. Be kind of fun to watch. I don't know how that. We have a lot of these types of restaurants like Rainforest Cafe and different things that are very themed, and some of those concepts I think lose their appeal after you've been to one a couple times. But I think it'd be kind of cool to check out. I would go check it out.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's really it's really a great idea, and you're absolutely right. It's a really great way of tapping into remote, and especially our industry is still struggling finding enough labor, not just labor, qualified labor, and then also labor which wants to work the crazy hours our industry has. So what is your take overall around remote work?
I mean, it's hard to do in a restaurant, obviously. If
Yep.
we can come out with some AI capability, I think that there's opportunity there.
Mhm.
I think that corporate office work for the restaurant corporate office is much more, has the ability to work, especially with some of the tech stacks that we're building in restaurants, where you've got Restaurant 365 and other companies that you can remotely work from home, and or being able to track. There's a great tool out there called Fusion Prep that
Mhm.
allows someone to do walkthroughs and line checks, and those get sent remotely to bosses and corporate people to be able to verify that things took place in the restaurant. So I think that there's more and more tech allowing that corporate level to be able to work remotely, or an owner that doesn't want to have to be in the restaurant every day to be able to do that. I think that from
Yeah.
fast service, I think, the guest needs to see
Mhm.
a restaurant manager on the floor. The staff needs to see a restaurant manager on the floor. So I think that
Uh,
it has its,
Totally agree. Have you in your career worked remote or have you always been in offices?
I mean, I work remote now as a restaurant coach, but no, I didn't in operational side. uh, Not until I got to the director level was I able to do that remotely.
Yeah, it's great for me. I've been working remote for almost 25 years. And, for me, it's what we do. And that's why we built a little studio here in my office, because we've been around remote work all the time. And for me, looking at what COVID did to the industry, it actually exposed that remote work is an opportunity. But I also feel that it takes a special person to do remote work, and remote work is not for everybody. And for me, I'm a big fan of remote work.
Yeah, I think that the millennial generation and beyond likes the idea of that,
Mhm.
um, and I think that individuals that are self motivated and self starters and self managing can certainly execute at a high level remotely.
What are some of the other things you see in your side of the industry around some changes in the hospitality industry? And how are you as a restaurant coach coaching people around some of the new things which coming into this space?
You're talking about as far as like just kind of schedules and when you're in the building, when you're not,
Yeah,
that kind
a
of
little
thing.
bit of everything because I think overall, when we talk about how the work dynamics change, is the way we have run a restaurant 20 years ago, you can't run it today like that. It wouldn't work. And you always been on the forefront on seeing some of the new cool and great things. What do you see some of the things are which maybe give us some pro and cons, some of the new things you see in the space currently?
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot more people are talking about. We talked about it on a show recently about having that work-life balance, and that doesn't necessarily mean this amount of time on your job and this amount of time for your free time. It's more about creating a rhythm and some margin in your life to be able to do the things you want. And so whether that's a restaurant manager who is going to go in the morning and knock out some work and then take a break to pick up their child from daycare or school and spend a couple hours with them before bedtime and then go back to the restaurant. I think that there's more opportunity to break up your day than there used to be, where you just work 10 to 12 hours straight and never leave the building. I think that one of the early adapters of this happened quite a long time ago when the chart house, the people that started chart house, they were surfers and snow skiers. And so they would go in the morning and set up their restaurant. They're only open for dinner. Then they go ski or surf for the rest of the day. And then they come back and run the restaurant at night. And I think that we're starting to examine that kind of a option to where if somebody's got something in the middle of the day, like watching a soccer game or something, that there's some opportunity to have some flex time to be able to leave the restaurant and come back. And I think that that's a new model that people are starting to consider.
Yeah, for me, I came up, so as I started in the industry, our work day was different. So we started 5 a.m., gotten into the kitchen, got breakfast ready. We served breakfast. We had a half hour, 45, depends on how breakfast went, half hour, 45-minute break. Then we gotten into lunch service. Lunch service was done by 2. By the time we were cleaned up was 2:30. And then we had a break from 2:30 to 5. And, the goal was to get out at 2:20, not 2:30, and under 5. We came back at 5. We got ready for dinner service. Dinner service usually started at 7, and they went to 10. We cleaned up by 10:30, 11. We were done, and that was our work day. And that having that split shift, it was also one of those things. Some of the people absolutely loved it. Some of them hated it. For me, I always loved it. I think it made it more bearable working all day, and it gave you that afternoon break off.
Yeah. Was that in Austria?
I was back home in Austria. Yeah.
So dinner, so people didn't really go out to have dinner till like 7 o'clock.
Yeah, so for us, especially growing up in the hotel, breakfast was from 6 to 9. Lunch was from noon to 2. Lunch was really short because lunch in Austria is it's a smaller meal. And then dinner, it started somewhere between 7, 7:30. Most of the people were 7. If you got in early, you were 6:45, but it went to 10. And even over the years, it changed. Now it's starting earlier, and at 9 o'clock, you can go nowhere to eat because everybody's closed, and the hotel's closing even the doors at 10 o'clock at night. So it did change over the years, but for me, yeah, for work, I travel a lot to Spain, and it takes forever for me to kind of come back from Spain because they eat. We were just out for dinner not long ago in Spain, in Barcelona, and the guy came taking out dessert order at 1:30 in the morning, and I was like, somebody ought to order dessert or I go to bed. I can't eat that late, and so it's so different from country to country. And for me, Austria is one of those things now at 9 o'clock at night. It's really hard to find something to eat.
Yeah, I think that Europe, the European diner, and actually just the people that live in Europe, especially, there's certain countries that really live around food, like Italy and Spain, and
Mhm,
Austria and different places, where the goal is not to live to work; it's to work to live. And so, they're taking siestas in the middle of the day, or, getting an espresso at a cafe for a few hours and hanging out with friends and things like that. And I really like the rhythm of Europe. If I could live in Europe, I probably would, just because I love the rhythm of just enjoying life, and having work kind of work its way through that, but not be the central point. And I think that we're starting to understand that a little bit here, and that's why we're seeing
mhm.
some different work schedules, more flexibility. I don't mind, as a restaurant coach, I don't mind taking breaks during the day, picking up my son from school or whatever, having a long lunch with my wife, and then doing work late into the night after they go to bed. So I think that
Yeah,
we're seeing more opportunity for that.
absolutely. So, overall in the workplace in the US, there's a lot more about freelancing. What is your thought process around freelancing in the hospitality industry? Is there freelancing available? Also, if there is, what are some of the opportunities around that? And is this something the industry is going to adapt? Um, where do you feel though those non-traditional work arrangements are in the hospitality industry?
I think we're very slow to adapt to anything like that in the industry. I think that the mindset is you've got to, we're paying someone a salary and they've got to put in a certain amount of time, and I don't think we focus as much on success and productivity as we do on hours worked. We're so committed to, hey, this amount of money equals this amount of hours, and production and success really don't play a part of that. And I think that, we've had conversations where, why not work a 45-hour work week instead of a 50 or 60-hour work week if the restaurant is running smoothly, why, and it's making money. Why not work a
Mhm.
40-hour work week? Because nobody else in the industry demands 50 plus hours a week. There are attorneys and different people that will work more than that, but there's no industry that demands a 50-hour work week outside of ours, and I think that we need to get away from that concept.
I agree, and I've been heavily involved in the Culinary Institute of America. I'm a society fellow at the CIA, and I see how the CIA is now going overseas to attract new students because they just can't get enough people here to get into the hospitality industry. Looking at pre-COVID versus now, where do you feel some of these changes came in? I know COVID exposed that people wanted to spend weekends at nights with their families and friends. And also, I think COVID exposed on how fragile the culinary and hospitality industry actually is. Where do you think those changes come from? And is this still an industry where young people come into it and want to be part of?
I think that we have to adapt. The younger generation doesn't want to commit to what we had to deal with growing up of, being yelled at by a chef mentor, of how, pissed off and throwing a frying pan at you with some fish in it because you didn't cook it right, or making you work 12, 13 hours a day. And then we'd all go out and party and, get zero sleep and then go back at it. And that was accepted. We had no lives, we had no relationships. And I think that because of our commitment to our craft, we were willing to put up with that. I don't I don't see that same commitment to our craft, but I also see younger people that want to model more of that European model where they're not sucked into the life that we've all had. And so I think that it's a combination, the timing of millennials and Gen Z and COVID kind of caused some pause and people to start rethinking. That's what my book that I'm writing, Shift Happens, talks about, is these changes that people just aren't willing to do what we used to do. So I think it's a combination of the generation as well as that. You asked a question before about how some of these models could work. I have a client that I'm their fractional director of operations. So instead of having a full-time 50-hour work week director of ops who's traveling around in the restaurants all the time, I work remotely from Tampa, and I fly up to Virginia to Richmond once a month for a couple days. But all the rest of my work is remote and it's part time, and it allows a restaurant group to be able to afford someone at my skill set without paying a six-figure salary. So I think you're going to see some more of that kind of
Mhm.
operation.
I love that, because for me, there's one thing I was wanted the industry to adapt, and it's around chefs. So if somebody is a phenomenal saute cook or grill cook, um, why would they be bound just working at one place? And if that place is slow Monday, Tuesday, maybe they can work elsewhere and doing what they're good at. For me, I feel there's an opportunity, especially for chefs back at the house, become their own bosses and start an LLC. And I gift my services. Why couldn't I work for five different restaurants? And I just go when I'm needed, because I honestly believe that, every restaurant has their highs and lows. And I look at my area. Why couldn't I do, as a Sade guy, why couldn't I work a country club at lunch and do a high-end restaurant for dinner? And get compensated and make a higher salary out of it, and I still have the commitment to both of them. And then vice versa. How about if I'm a really good marketing person, and rather than picking up a shift as a hostess because they can't afford me as a marketing person, how about I work for five different places and do marketing for them? And for me, I honestly feel the direction needs to go where the days where you work for one particular place are over. I provide my skills, and this is what I can demand for my skill set. And why can't I work for five or six different people?
Yeah, and our friend Michael Tips started Maverick Theory, a company that kind of follows that model where
Mhm.
they can send a Michelin star chef or a James Beard Award winning chef or a celebrity chef in to work with your sous chef, for a few days, and you're getting this expertise that you'd never be able to afford.
Correct. Mhm.
Come in and really develop your people, and that's really what it's about. Because if you could bring in the best of the best, and if I could get Christian to come to my restaurant for 3 days and teach my sous chefs how to run the restaurant, I'm taking advantage of that phenomenal experience that you have and that knowledge, and being able to raise the level of execution that my team has. And I think you're going to start to see more and more of that. That's what I do, for a living
Yeah,
also.
I love that, and I'm really passionate about the ideas. Exactly what you just said. Because now, as a restaurateur, and not just a restaurateur, if I have a high end grocery market, food is everywhere. And how great would it be? I have a local liquor store here, fairly upscale liquor store, and they have a high-end chef come every first Friday of the month, where they feature the new deliveries. He makes, mussels and other stuff out of that wine, whatever he brings in, and he bears stuff. And he said, I paid a guy $1,000 a night because just having him here attracts people into. And all of a sudden, I'm not just a liquor guy, I'm a food guy. And people come in, and he features wine, and he says his chef's name is Mike. And he says, this is wine recommendation from Mike. And he says it works for him and it works for Mike. And for me, I find this absolutely phenomenal, because I think we need to do more of that. And there's not enough, I don't want to say chefs, but yeah, the reason we started the whole idea of the disruptive chef is we wanted chefs to start thinking differently. We wanted to disrupt their everyday and the way they think and go about doing business. And you and I talk a lot about, in order for things to get better, we need to get better. And when I go to this liquor store and I see that this guy pays a chef $1,000 for a day, but he says, my sales are through the roof. And he says, even if I don't make a dime, if I break even, that's his goal for the day when Mike is there. He says, I'm the talk of the town. And some people just come to eat hors d'oeuvres, and that's totally okay. Because I know when they come wine, they come to me, because when they think of wine, they think of me. And it's just a way of kind of looking at your business different. And I'm a big believer that needs to be adopted by grocery stores, because some of the grocery stores, I have a Whole Foods not far from here, which has a Japanese restaurant and then all the stuff they do. How great would it be if they could turn it in for 2 nights, do a phenomenal pizza guy or a sushi guy or an Austrian guy? It doesn't really matter. For me, I'm a big believer. Let's outsource some of the things and find a new way of getting people into it. And my final thing around that is that in Arizona, in Scottsdale, is um, a travel agency. And when they sell cruise ship, their specialty is cruising. And I learned it from a local store here. It's called Cruise King International. It's a local business which just sells cruises. And she said that place in Arizona, they bring in one of the cruise ships. They call him chef. I'm not sure it's a chef, it's a sous chef, but there's a guy there making 2, 3 dishes. What's being served on a cruise. And he says, when people sit there and make the decision on, I want to upscale my services, or I want to go just into the all-inclusive program. When the guy makes the dish, he says, we sell the exclusive all day long. And for me, I think that's where food needs to become more, engaging or more included in what we do.
Yeah, well, and even in the restaurant space, when I worked for Wolfgang Puck, he would bring in some of his other buddy chefs to do a dinner with him, right? And I went to a Thomas Keller dinner in Beverly Hills that a restaurant brought him in to do an 8-course tasting. And I think that since this wave of celebrity chefs on television, and I'm not even talking about the Gordon Ramsays of the world, I'm talking about the people that are in his show that win, Hell's Kitchen or
Mhm.
something. These chefs have the ability to go out and do these celebrity dinners and travel around, and it creates a different lifestyle for them where they're not stuck in the same kitchen every day. Um, and we got somebody named Steve on there saying hi to us. And also, I was just Robert Irvine, Chef Irvine, was just in town in Tampa. He lives here, but he travels like 300 days a year. And he did a dinner at Meat Market down at Hyde Park on Thursday night. It was for the Tampa Wine and Food Festival, and
Mhm.
And so he did the dinner with Meat Market on Thursday. He went to a liquor store and did a signing for, he's got a gin and a vodka out. He did a signing for that. And then he was at the Tampa Bay Food and Wine Festival on Saturday, and then flew back out on Sunday. So being able to bring these people in and do these dinners, whether it's
Mhm.
Christian Fischer or Robert Irvine or somebody that just won Chopped or whatever, is a great opportunity as a chef to be able to kind of reinvent themselves and what their work life looks like.
Yeah, I love him. By the way, we have Steve Catania here. He is asking some questions here. I interviewed his uncle just a few days before he passed, and every time I hear or see his name, um, Chef Dan Catania was one of those guys. First of all, he worked with me for many years, and a very good, close friend of mine. He was the most amazing chef. The way he looked at supporting his staff. He was not just an amazing chef, he was an amazing entrepreneur and all the stuff he did. He loved the industry more than anybody. I think he would love this conversation here because he always went out of his way to try something new and bring something back to his kitchens to not just support the people he worked with, also the communities. So, Steve, thanks for listening in today. Be a big fan of Chef Dan Kadani. He's just an amazing human being.
Yeah, Steve, sorry for your loss. My condolences to you and the family. I recently lost my dad too. It was a tough time. So hearts go out with you, and thanks for joining the show.
Yeah. So for us, before we wrap it up, so if our listeners haven't done so, please join the Disruptive Chef Club community. You get more access to Monte and myself, and you get a front row seat for all the latest and greatest things we do. We also use them as a sounding board for what conversations should we have and how should we support the industry in what we're doing. So before we wrap it up, I want to talk to you a little bit more. What do you think some of the new norms are around working in the industry?
I mean, the work-life balance, the hours worked, looking at productivity over hours, not trading dollars for hours.
Mhm.
Um, I think that focusing on dollars in sales and profit over percentages. You don't take percentages to the bank. So I think driving that top line and bringing as much of that to the bottom line is way more important than what your food cost is. Um, I think that we're now getting to be able to, it used to be you had to be invited onto a TV show, right, on
Yep.
HGTV or the Food Channel. You had to hope that a food critic came in and reviewed your restaurant. You had to hope that you got a magazine to want to write an article about you.
Mhm.
And now there's just so much content that we can put out ourselves about our restaurants or our businesses and building our own brands. And I think that that's changed a lot for the better. Um, I'm excited. I'm excited to be on podcasts like this and share our knowledge. I think there's way more knowledge out there to absorb. We kind of either had to follow a mentor and learn from them, or follow a crappy leader and learn what not to do. And it was a much longer, more painful process. But now there's
Yeah.
a lot more content out there to.
I I think there's a lot of listeners and a lot of people in the industry which maybe have to compensate for some of the shortcomings of their managers to make sure the operations run. But if you're new to this show, Monte and I talk about our experience in the industry, and that's not something we read about or heard about or watched somewhere. For us, this is the things we learned, the things we had to implement in order to get to where we are today. And as we spoke earlier, in order for your things to get better, you need to get better. And if you look around you, nothing around you changes, it's time for you to change. And there's nobody better than you, Monte. And I'm really excited to have these conversations with you.
It's my pleasure, Christian. I always get a lot out. I consider you a great mentor and friend, and I appreciate you.
So we have these conversations every Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you would please like this show, share it with a friend or share it with somebody you feel can benefit from it. If there was a thing or two you heard from Monte, how he looks at labor, please save this podcast and listen to it over again, because there was a bunch of little nuggets he dropped. And for me, I have a full page of notes as always. Um, because it's amazing when we have these conversations on how many things for me, oh, I need to start doing this again, or hey, we need to do more of that. So we have these conversations every Monday, 3 p.m. And we talking from a little bit from what did we learn last week of what we do to where we need to go. Monte earlier said, there's a lot of chefs which I feel, first of all, need to have a book, because a book makes you a expert overnight. Also, every chef needs to do a podcast, because how amazing would it be if you are one of the best pizza makers in the country? I would learn from you what makes a really good pizza, because my pizza is okay. It's not great, truth be told. And so for me, I would learn from something. So I feel every chef needs a book. Every chef needs a podcast. How do you feel about that, Monday?
Yeah, and our friend Jay Ashton says every restaurant needs a podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, the chefs that have written cookbooks, the great chefs like Wolfgang and Mario Battelli, and all the great chefs that have come before, and you and everyone else. As you write these cookbooks, Thomas Keller, their restaurants don't get slower.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks, oh, you're giving away your recipes, but the reality is it just drives more people to want to come and visit your restaurant. And so I think writing a cookbook or a book is essential to a restaurateur being successful.
Yeah. And then we also talked about, and maybe we need to make this one of the episodes. You and I, before we started today's show, we talked a little bit. Hey, I have a new piece of equipment I've been test driving. Hey, if I would do this over again, I wouldn't buy 50 microphones. I would ask somebody what is a good microphone. I think that's a much better way of doing it. So maybe we need to have a conversation on how you're doing podcasts, how we do podcasts, and how our podcasts have evolved. My very first show I did in my dining room in the corner, because I had 2 windows. I had so much natural light that I had to sit in the corner, and I had a really tight shot just of me because I had all this sun glare. And at night I had to close the blinds, because when people drove by, you could see in my background the lights from the cars. So we have come a long way from
Yeah.
what
And
we're
I think
doing.
that we also, I had a call again today, and we've talked about this, of people that want to do what we're doing, and I think that there's an opportunity for us to work together to mentor a group of people that want to break into this side of the business. And a guy today, he's a chef, and he said, if you and Christian are going to do something, let me know. I definitely want to jump on that.
So yeah, for our listeners, Monte just let something out of the bag. So there was one thing Monte and I wanted to do somewhere late May. We wanted to have a conversation with 15, 20 people. Not a big crowd, just a conversation for an hour or two. What they would like to get out of their business in whatever they're in. What holds them back? How do they want to scale? And let us share a little bit of what we learned and what we would do if we would do it over. And so if anybody's interested, please DM us below. We want to have a really small group. We want to keep this tight, 20, 25 people. And we're going to take some time and work with those 25s to help them move forward. So if anybody's interested, please let us know.
Yep. Great as always, Christian.
So I really appreciate it. So if you haven't done so, please go to disruptivechef.club. Make sure you join our private community. Give a shout out to Mr. Monte. Monte, where can our listeners find you?
You can follow me on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter called Restaurant Success Club, and then I also have a podcast called Restaurant Success Club. Christian, you've been on a couple times. You can see that. You can listen to that on Apple and Spotify podcasts. The video version will be up soon on my YouTube page, And you could also find me at www.montesilvacoaching.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Monte, for being here today. If you guys found value, again, leave us a note. We read every single one of them. If it's a good one, I will certainly comment. If somebody has something negative to say, please make sure you direct it towards Monte. He's really good in getting those feedback. But we appreciate you guys listening in. Thanks for allowing us to rant a little bit of what we would do if we would have to start over and what the restaurant market currently looks like from a labor perspective. But with that, I want to say thanks for being here. Any closing words of wisdom, Monte?
Find a mentor. Christian is one of mine, and find someone that is willing to pour into you, so you don't have to make these the same mistakes we made.
I need to give it right back. If anybody's looking for a front of the house manager, there's nobody better than Monte. Not just because he is a really good friend of mine. He is really good because he has done it. He went through the struggle. He worked the 80-hour weeks, and there's nobody better than this than he is. So if you want to have your restaurant scale, please reach out to Monte. Tell him you heard about him in this podcast. He's going to give you the family and friends discount. So with that, I want to say thank you for being here today. Don't forget to remember to disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian Fischer, your host, here with Monte Silva, our co-host. We are signing off. We want you to be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. We see